Good morning. It is Sunday, June 29th. What do we have? One more day and we're into July. Pardon this disheveledness. I worked my second gig last night. I bartend for a wedding venue. And there was a wedding last night, needless to say, and it was late when I got home. But it made me question so many things. You know, I'm exposed to the public in a variety of different ways. The gig I work, the second job that I work in, can't talk, I'm so tired, a banquet center. And they mostly do weddings and big events and things like that. And they are seeing a decline in weddings. They are seeing more people not drinking, not doing the whole bar thing. And anybody from my generation, which is a boomer, or Gen X, the younger people are getting away from alcohol in general. And the parties and the events and things that they are doing it on a more personal scale. They are scaling back to home events or destination weddings. Last night, though, the wedding that I worked in, and I'll get into where I'm going with all this, but favors. They did, which I thought was so unique. And I'm surprised I have not come up with this idea, for as much as I'm a foodie and a coffee person. And before we get too far into this, I'm Kitryn Marie. I reside in St. Louis, Missouri, an artist, writer, speaker, life and a business coach, teach a variety of art classes, have my hand in food and beverage. I've had my hand in food and beverage for 32 years. That probably will never change. I would say it's like being in the mafia. You never get out. But they made these little labels with their name on it, and then they gave out samples of spices. That was one of the favors. It was the most unique thing. They didn't do a champagne toast, that kind of threw me back, you know, where the father of the bride gets up and says something, the groom says something, the maid of honor says something. And they also had coffee packets. I don't really want to give their name away. But they did coffee packets. So the coffee says grounds for celebration, and the spice was for spicing up our day. Thanks. How cute is that? But there is such a decline in weddings in general. And I don't know what the statistics are, but young people are waiting till they are in their later 30s, early 40s. Women are opting not to have children. That was a big discussion. Hang on one second. That was a big discussion in the theology group that I was lending a hand helping with. And women aren't having children. They are putting their selfish needs, and I don't mean to say that to be rude or to be ignorant, but they are putting their career first. They are putting their financial needs first. They are putting their physical, you know, nails, Botox, perfect hair, perfect life, where if you do not have children, you don't have the finances to do all those things for yourself. You take your money, your time, and you put it into your kids. And that was part of the discussion in the theology, why women were not having kids. A lot of women want children. They can't have children. They are looking IVF. They are looking into adoption. And the cost is just astronomical, and they are finding that they can't get the financial need and help that they want, so they are just choosing to live a childless life, which is fine and good. Whatever makes you happy. I don't know what that was. Why are you growling at your sister? Stop. That wasn't very nice. That was not nice. But getting away from that commitment, getting away from being attached to somebody for the rest of your life. So from this point on, men, boys, gentlemen, if you don't want to listen to any of this, now would be the time to kind of, hop off. Because I want to know, women, why don't you want to be married, and why don't you want to be coupled up, and why do you not want a lifelong partner? I've been married one time. I can probably say since I was 17, I had one first love, serious relationship at 17, and it lasted a couple of years. It ended because we were different religions. I would have married that guy, would have went to the other side of the moon for him. His parents didn't want us to be married because we came from two different religious backgrounds. From there, I met my now ex-husband, and we were married 11 years, 2 kids. My youngest is from somebody else. It was a relationship that I really didn't want. Thought I'd give it a go, and it didn't work out. But I have this great young one now. He's going to be 25 this December. Great kid, hard worker. But so I had the high school boyfriend, my husband, dated a lot in my 30s. No real big relationship. I had one other person move in with me. That was an on and off, and even though he was in my house, that was an on and off thing for 2 years till it got to the point where I was caretaking and financially doing anything and everything for him. And I had a young one that needed my attention. It had driven the older two, just a hard line in between. And then got involved with the person I was involved with for 8 years. And then just recently ended, a year ago, ended a relationship that, again, was very on and off for a good, I do long term, 6 years. It might have even been more. In my mind, I always say 10 years, but then that's not exactly right. But I am not a serial dater. In my 30s, I dated a lot, but I was trying to figure out who I was and what I was interested in, and it hindered and helped that I was in the bar and restaurant industry, and because I never really had a big social life being married, it was kind of like I was feeling my oats. I have never been a big drinker. I am opposed, and this is such a crux, because when you have made your living being a bartender and you are not a drinker, you see the terrible effects that goes on the other side of the bar. And my pool of individuals that I dated when I was in my 30s came from the environment in which I was working. And like I said, I have been in food and beverage for 32 years. It's just second skin to me. I can do it in my sleep. I can close my eyes and do the damn job. But I am asking you, at this point, whatever your age is, why do you not want to be married? Why do you not want a partner? And what was the turning point that you said, I can't do this anymore. I need to pay attention to the things that are going on in my life. And then on the flip side of that, I look at people who are in their 60s who are looking at there is more life behind them than there is in front of them, and they have made every bad choice possible, and now they are just settling on just so they don't have to do this anymore. They're finding someone who is so less than them, they have less than them, and they are offering this big old package, which is not really a big old package at all. It's just that person can't be alone. Where was the turning point in any of my life? I cannot say I do not want to be married again, but I want it to be for the right reasons. You know, again, I'm going to be 64 in a couple weeks. Am I out there dating? No. What I am seeing with the pool or the environment, there's nothing that is appeasing or appealing to me. I am looking for intelligence. I am looking for educated. I am looking for worldly. I want someone to understand their own mental health and their physical health. Because as we age and we have all these different ailments, and if you are partnering up with someone, is it really your partner's responsibility to care for you, to take care of you because you did not take care of yourself? I worry about that. I have a few health issues. Only it's an autoimmune issue. In 2013, I was diagnosed with a form of leukemia. Falls more into the autoimmune. Sometimes I think it's like a Hashimoto's. Sometimes I think it's like a fibromyalgia. I get tired extremely easy. Again, I'm not a drinker. If I do have a glass of wine, it's over ice and it's for taste, not effect. I'm concerned about sleeping habits. You know, do I believe in separate bedrooms? Not really. I mean, I want to be able to take my hand and reach over to my other half. I want to know that I am secure, you know, with my person right there. Am I concerned about morning routines? I am. I am a morning person only to the fact that I can get up at 5 o'clock, but don't ask me to jump in the shower and go running around. I can't do that. I need somebody who understands if you're a real morning person, you know, you're getting up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning because like my dad used to say, the older you get, you don't need as much sleep, which I disagree with that. But, you know, what is your morning routine and how does it come to odds with the person that you were with? Now, I can get up 5, 6, but let me have my coffee till 9, 10, unless I have to be at my job, unless, you know, I'm working, then I can kind of alter my routine. I don't want anybody in my space in the morning. How do you decompress from your day? And is it in compliance and does it agree with your person? I work in a noisy environment. I work with people talking all day long, TVs on, radios, you know, multiple conversations. I'm flying around a 32,000 square foot building. It may not be that big, but it's huge. Putting on, you know, 12,000 steps within a couple hours. When I come home, I don't want the TV on. I don't listen to the radio in my car because I want quiet. I want silence. So are you compatible with your person? And if you are dating, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Do you understand your love language? What is it that your person, partner, future spouse, what language are they speaking? Not so much verbally, but actively, physically. What is the love language that you are looking for? And I've talked about this before. In your relationship that you're building that connection and that partnership with. There is a person on TikTok, I don't know if it's Goose, very blue collar guy. They live in the country, kind of disheveled, funnier than all get out. He calls his wife feral, a bougie feral wife. You know, she's into all the hobbies. She's got all these ideas to help make them money, but really in reality, which I can relate to, it is the way that she can use her creative ability, and her being creative gives her an outlet which makes her happy, and her husband is all too willing to buy whatever it is that she needs or wants because it makes her happy. He just wants to be left alone. He's not a grump. He looks like he can be kind of a really mean guy if push comes to shove. Very much loves his family, very much, likes doing things with the family. How important is that to you? If you're an adult, you've got grown children, you've got grandkids, and you're bringing somebody into your world, into your life, how hands-on do you want your other half to be? And bringing that other half in, how are your children dealing with now you being older, not their father, not their whatever? What is the acceptance? Are they welcoming that other person in? How important is it to you? In my younger days, when my oldest was young, he made life miserable for anybody that I dated. Oh my God, it was god awful. To the point where I was just like, I'm done. I'm just done. I can't be that middle person to try to make my kid happy as much as I tried to, and then try to be, this fun, active, hey, let's go do this with a new person, knowing my child was miserable. It got to a point it was just too much. And I've always been a hands-on mom. My kids have always come first. But I have always, in regard, thought about my own personal happiness. What about you? What is your own personal happiness, and what are you not willing to accept into this relationship? What is that love language, and how are you expressing to that person that you were dating, hey, this is what I need? Not so much about what you want, because I think all of us have grown up with this expectation of what love should look like. And even at this point in any of our lives, we know what it doesn't look like. We know what settling is. We know what less than compromising looks like. And we also know what lowering a standard, because you can't find anybody to meet your standard, and you were like, well, this is all that's in front of me. This is all that has presented themselves. So therefore, this is just what I will do. And I know quite a few women where somebody had asked them to marry them, and they weren't really all that in love, but they thought, okay, sure, why not? You're here. And that turns out to be the most god-awful relationship, because in the long run, they are not compatible. There is nothing they have in common. There have been no designated conversations for what is needed and what that love language is. So I'm going to give you an example. Hang on one second. My love language is build me. Physical activity, build me. Let's, I'm going to try to throw this out here, because this is really me. Let's get up in the morning. Let me wake up a little bit. Let me have some coffee here. Please don't turn the TV on. Don't turn the radio on. Find something to do in another room, please. Just let me have my quiet. That comes from years of being alone. When you have become so comfortable within yourself, it is hard to accept any kind of noise when you have pieced back together your life needing peace. So, let me wake up. Let me have my coffee. Let's go grab breakfast. Let's go grab breakfast. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. I can share a sandwich with you. We can go through drive-through. Please, though, I would prefer a fancy coffee. And honestly, I've not had a fancy coffee in over a year. I think about it. I look at my money. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of those I really don't need it. And all you gals that are out running around to Starbucks 19 times a day, if you cut that back, you'd be surprised how much money you really save. Let's go yard sailing. Let's go thrifting. Let's go to the antique store. Now, after a while, that does get pretty boring because you're seeing the same things over and over again. But if you are having a conversation with your person and you are discussing whatever it is that love language is, expressing what you want. What you want. If you're going to go to that thrift store, what are you looking for? Don't be spending money nilly-willy. You know, do you have a purpose for going there? Usually I'm looking for something within my house. I have a hard time finding clothes in thrift stores. From there, build me. What are we building? What project are we working on? What can we do to better where we live? Now let's take the finance out of all of that, because we all know money does play a very big factor. If you are coupled up, if your significant partner person, you're living together, you're getting married, and you're going to be living in one house, what is it that you both can work on within that house? And are you understanding, hey, if you are living here and I am living here, then let's talk about this project in which we need to work on to accomplish, so we have a better surrounding, so we have more of a comfortable way of just living, coexisting in this house together. Is it a ceiling fan? Nothing irritates me more than to have somebody start a project and then it not get finished. That is one of my very, very biggest pet peeves. If you know something needs to get done and you start it, why can you not finish it? Especially if you know you go to your job, you know you have to have A, B, C, D in order to do the job. You can't just leave the job hanging. You have to finish what you start in order to earn your reward. There's no other way to really to put that. You know, with your job, you get an income, you earn something, but what is the benefit and what comes from starting something and completing it? I have electric conduit in my yard that's been there for over 15 years. A project that got started, that was never finished. I have an attic fan that keeps going out. It has been worked on numerous times. Nobody seems to get to the bottom of why it doesn't work. Started on it. What else? In terms of building, I have crumbling front porches, back porches. That, you know, if a person was here, a person was living here, they would not want to walk up those steps. God forbid, have their person fall through it. What else? What else? Fences. Mending fences. You know, you're in the garden, having somebody work alongside of you in the garden because you are producing something from the land that you are working on, because the love language is activity together. What else? I have a slop sink in the basement. Was put in. Love it. Absolutely love it. And it does not drain right. There's something clogged within it. I don't know what it is. Actually, this morning I went down there and used it briefly, and the water went down, and I about fell over. Projects that get started that do not get finished. When you are with your person, when you are with your partner, what are you expecting from them? That they are on the same level as you, knowing this is where they live, this is where they participate, this is where they exist, coexist. How are they contributing to make this love language work for the both of you? And if that is your love language, then what is your person's love language? And as I'm doing all those things, as it said, go to breakfast, go to coffee, go thrifting, go to the hardware store to look at what you need for those projects. If that person is crabby, if that person is not feeling good, if that person is sleep deprived, if that person just is living a miserable existence, there is a disconnect with the attachment that your person is having within themselves, that they cannot regulate their own want, their own need, what they need to do to take care of themselves in order to meet and match your love language. Nobody enjoys somebody who is so dysregulated from a position that they are working, that when they come home they cannot contribute to the household. And this is a little different from a mother with young children who is working and she's coming home and trying to maintain her household, and the dad who is working his job, trying to climb ladders. There is always going to be that disconnect. And for any man just to come home to sit on the couch and play a video game because he needs to decompress from his world while the wife is rearing kids, bathing them, getting their homework done, there's a huge disrespect from the man's point of view. And you can flip that script if you want. Talking so much I'm losing my voice, which might be a blessing because I have to go into my job tonight, and I'm sure some of them don't want to hear me talk. But your love language. What is it that you were needing and that you were wanting? And what is it that is preventing you from going to find who or what you need in your life? And then how much from all of your past is triggering so many things that you have not been able to get a handle on? And like I always say, there's always parts of a puzzle that are missing. Are you understanding those puzzle pieces that are missing is what is triggering you in order for you to have that disconnect with your person, your partner? You know, and when I was studying life coaching, and I don't even like to talk about that anymore because nobody really cares. Nobody really cares what I studied or how I studied, unless you're my sister who wants to criticize what I do. But how much of what you have gone through affects the person you are today, and are you allowing it to keep you from progressing? And I'm going to throw out a few other things. Holidays, birthdays. A narcissist, and I have asked myself this over and over and over again. Holidays and birthdays mean everything to me. That comes from years of growing up. My family made a huge deal about Christmases and birthdays and holidays and getting together. Not my last person, because there were several holidays that I ruined because of trigger effects. I had such recall from the previous relationship that every time there was a holiday and I was going out of my way to do all these wonderful things, that he found a way to ruin it, to destroy it, to be in a bad mood, to not have any money, to be crabby, to procrastinate, whatever the typical down-the-line list of a narcissist can do. So therefore, going forward with the person that I was involved with, I would have all these grand ideas in what I would want to do for these holidays. And although he would comply, there would be something within either the moment or the 24 hours after that I would have such a trigger recall that I would completely shut down. It was if my subconscious was thinking the shoe was going to drop, therefore I would need to protect my emotions, my feelings, my actions, and I would detach so much that it caused resentment on the other person's end, because literally I was just discarding and abandoning. Now, after doing a lot more research, understanding a little bit more about trigger recalls, what is the trigger, and what are you recalling from something that happened a long time ago that you are till this day not able to get a handle on? What is it? And are you willing and open enough and vulnerable enough to discuss it with your person to make them understand it has nothing to do with you, although you are the one that is getting the brunt of it? Or the mix of that, what is the trigger recall on your person, partner, husband to be, girlfriend, wife to be, that you are not understanding because you are not understanding the scope of how bad a situation was, and that person is just trying to deal with it, just trying to muddle through, but because you're so hyper-focused on a situation that you're not even taking into effect what that person, your partner, your future, whatever, has had to go through. And in order for that person to be able to stand and go through the holiday, the birthday, the celebrations of whatever, do you really understand the scope of what typically went on? And are you able to kindly, without walking on eggshells, because nobody wants to walk on eggshells, but are you wanting to get to the root of the problem in order to bring that connectedness together, so you never have to lower your expectation, but you leave room for that other person to grow, to understand how important certain situations are to you. I hope that made sense, because that was a mouthful. That was an absolute mouthful. But if you are, no matter what your age, if you are a person who is looking to partner and couple up, have that long-term commitment, what is holding you back? Nobody wants to be somebody's mother. Nobody wants to be in a codependent relationship. Nobody wants to have to be financially responsible when the other person refuses to be financially responsible. How much of the relationship are you carrying if you are coming together with somebody who has kids? How much of that relationship are you expected to carry when that person is not being responsible for their own children, and or the other parent is not a hands-on, is not involved, is out of the picture? What is that doing to you personally that is keeping you from that closeness with your person? And is that person using his children to hide behind? Because that is always a big factor also. What was your examples of love growing up? What dynamic did your mother and father play? What was the environment? What was the circumstance? What are you a product of that you are trying to wrap your head around that is keeping you from finding your forever? Do I think there's one perfect person for any of us? No. Do I think it takes a lot of hard work? Yes, absolutely it does. I think there is a lot of tug, push, and pull. You have to drop egos. You have to put reality in check. You have to be willingly and openly able to discuss anything and everything, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. My Aunt Phyllis, I will use her as an example. Her and my Uncle Mike were married 3 times to each other. Married, divorced, married, divorced, married, she died. My Uncle Mike said I could always get her back. This time I cannot get her back. He was never the same after. My dad being a functional alcoholic, my mother being in a domestic violent situation, my dad a product of his environment. Alcoholism plays a very big part in my life. It's probably why I made it very easy to bartend all those years. I can do it blindfolded. I know the personality, I know the dysfunction, I know the toxicity, I know how to detach, and it's not who I am, it's what I had to do to make a living. Do I want that in my life? No, I do not want that in my life, and I've tried desperately to draw that line, to draw that boundary. Alcoholism, like any addiction, it's a disease. Are you willing, if that is you that has the disease, if it is you that has the addiction, are you understanding what you were doing to your person? Do you understand the highs and the lows? Do you understand the different personalities? Or are you understanding in the morning the person is sober and at night that person becomes somebody completely different? And what is that doing to you in terms of manipulation and gaslighting? Because that's what happens when you are involved with someone who is an addict. It is never the same. And what is that trigger that you're carrying into that relationship? And how much of it played such a part and a role in your life that is the only thing that you were familiar with, that uncomfortable familiarity. Back to examples. I grew up in love with love. I was told from my grandma, find somebody who loves you more than you love them. It's just as easy to marry a poor man than it is to marry a rich man. Find somebody who's going to take care of you. Find somebody who's going to provide for you. They never talked about our individual talents. They wanted us to be molded just like they were molded from their generation. Just be the good woman. Just cook, just clean, just serve, just be subservient. My gram would say all the time, kid, you don't have to always rock the boat. Learn to keep the peace. And I would always say, if I don't rock the boat, how do I know what's true and real? And she'd just shake her head at me. But again, I am asking you, wherever you are in this life, whatever your age is, what is it that is keeping you from finding your forever person? And understanding that being committed to somebody is very different than being attached to somebody. And I use this phrase all the time because somebody who was deflecting, not wanting to commit, always said, never attach yourself to something you cannot walk away from. Because what happens is, once you become embedded and committed to something that you don't like, because you have nowhere to run, because you cannot escape from the issue that you created, you become a prisoner of your own familiarity. So I am Kitryn Marie. I am an artist, a writer, speaker, life and a business coach. I am asking you these questions. What does love look like? We know what it doesn't look like. Are you willing to understand what your triggers are, what your recall is? Why is it that you cannot bring yourself to be vulnerable enough to commit to somebody? And what is it going to take? What are you needing to see? Because words and actions are completely different. Nobody wants to be love bombed. Nobody wants that back and forth, because it's a deflection of what needs to be worked on. I would love to hear from you. I would love to know where you are in your love journey. I would love to know your reasons why you do not want to get married. Why do you not? Why do you? Are children a factor? What is it that you have in your mind that you can't do it? Love to hear from you. Send me an email, Kitryn_Marie@yahoo.com. For today, for tomorrow, be happy, be blessed, be thankful for everything. Fate turns on a dime. It is up to you to decide what side of that coin you want to be on. You know, love might be the only answer. Love might be the only thing that sets you free. But are you willing to come to terms with what it will take in order to be loved and to love somebody else? Y'all take care, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.